You always learn much more from your failures than you do from any success, and it's good to fail. It's good to have to reevaluate what's working and what's not. You don't just get in, set it on autopilot, and just keep going for 30, 40 years and have a career. Things change. I mean, look what's happening right now. Like, look at how many businesses have had to recreate themselves. Look at what's happening right now with the job market. People are, career people are being replaced by AI. So if we're not thinking about what's next for us or what's possible, we're not going to work forever. Our time here on earth is not endless. Like, we have to be happy with what we do. Your work is not meant to drain you. Your work is meant to energize you. So if your work isn't getting, I mean, that's the bright spot of COVID. It opened up infinite possibilities. You could do anything you want and make money, right? So what is it you really want?
Hey, contact center, customer experience friends, welcome back to another episode of Contact Center Journeys. I'm super excited to be bringing on my guest, Valerie McSorley, who runs her own consulting services. Funny enough, ValerieMcSorley.com. And we'll get a story behind that, I'm sure. And she's also the CEO of Women in Contact Center Leadership, amongst many other things. So, Valerie, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Fred. Thank you so much for having me here. Great to be with you.
Absolutely. So, Valerie is a powerhouse of connection and innovation, award winning producer of podcasts, podcast host, visionary leader. With over 25 years of experience, Valerie has mastered the art of turning relationships into results and ideas into action. As a renowned connector, strategic partnership strategist, and networking expert, Valerie helps individuals and organizations unlock growth through meaningful collaboration. She's the architect behind a patent pending professional networking system that redefines how leaders connect, engage, and grow in today's fast paced world. With deep roots in the contact center and customer experience industries, Valerie combines technical strategy with a human centered approach to help teams perform at their best. She champions environments where innovation flourishes and every voice matters. So, as always, the intent of Contact Center Journeys is to inspire the next generation of CX and contact center professionals through sharing the stories of those that came up in the industry, like Valerie, myself, and all the guests. So who doesn't love a great origin story? And we want to change the narrative in the contact center and customer service industry that jobs don't have a future, because we all know people personally, entrepreneurs, leaders, executives, even technology people, that come up in this space. Started as agents, like in my case, and maybe junior level leaders. Some people branched off into consulting, but nonetheless, they all started in this space somewhere and grew, their expertise through time and effort. So there are never any sales pitches in contact center journey, though. We're not here to sell you anything. We're really here to celebrate these stories. All we ask, of our audience is if you share the content, it's free to use. Share it out, like it, do whatever you want with it. Just tag us in it. Make sure to follow all of our guests, and make sure, just subscribe to YouTube and all the various different podcast channels, and follow us on LinkedIn. So, without further ado, Valerie, tell us how you got into the crazy world of contact centers.
Okay, so Fred, lovely to be with you today. My journey started many, many years ago. I was drawn to being an event professional. So I had a background in producing conferences, producing super high level executive conferences all around the country. That's how I really got started. So my first experiences right out of college were working for a nonprofit, which always had a lot of events and fundraising and a lot of people you had to bring together. Through the course of my career, that's something that I'm super passionate about is bringing people together, creating community. empowering people to be heard, creating spaces and places where every voice is heard, everybody matters, and people want to feel seen. And so, in doing so, I decided I wanted to learn everything I could about being in the event world. So, I had a role with nonprofits, then I had a role with an organization that did, like I said, conferences. Then I had corporate. I had a very high end corporate job, which I was in charge of, and you high end insurance company. Everybody knows this insurance company. I won't name names, but I was in charge of everything from the CEO's office, the board of directors retreats, all the sports marketing contracts. So I was really trying to diversify my experience as much as I could before I settled down and had a family, because I knew that maintaining a career was really important to me, and I knew the demands of the event world. I mean, you don't stop. It's a 24/7 environment. And I didn't want to, I wanted to keep a toe in the water and keep my career intact once I got married and started a family. So I thought the best way for me to do that would be to start my own business, which is why I wanted to learn and go out, radar on, antenna up the whole time, to learn as much as I could about the industry. And just as I said I would, I got married and then I started my own company. And I gave myself 2 years to establish myself, to get a book of clients. And, typically you have to remember, people don't like to change their event producer. So if they're establish a relationship, it's not something you want to shop for year to year. So I was able to build a book of clients very quickly that were either annual events, quarterly events, and the like. So it took off very rapidly, and it gave me the ability to build a solid foundation and to grow. So, and the nice thing about events is they're scheduled well in advance, and they're a certain date on the calendar. So, when you're trying to juggle a lot of people back then didn't work from home, and I was juggling a lot and had my two sons, and was able to maintain a career that I loved, and also be maintain some freedom and flexibility in my schedule to be available and accessible to my son.
Nice. So when did you get in the contact center side though? I mean,
Yeah.
let's
So I when I started my business, I had a little bit of money that I had saved up. And I decided I could do one of two things with the money. I could invest it all in advertising and hope that the phone rang. And wishing and hoping has never been a strategy that I think is effective. Or I could take the same money and go and join some groups and network and get my name out there and start to build relationships and start to convert those relationships into opportunities. And that was the road that I picked. So in doing so, I decided I had to join a few different groups, and I always encourage everyone to be in different networking groups and to diversify the networking that you do, and to be in at least three different groups, one very specific to your industry, one that you enjoy, and then another one that, that will pay you dividends, that you can get some value out of. So I joined a group in Boston where I live, and when I first joined the group, I remember looking around at all the members, and I thought to myself, I could see different opportunities with different members and different things that they were involved in. And at the time, I did a lot of different events, not just contact center events. I did fashion shows, golf tournaments, product launches, meetings, corporate meetings, retreats, all different types of things. And there was one woman in the group who was a founding member of a contact center organization here in the Northeast. You've probably heard of them, the Northeast Contact Center Forum.
Yep.
And she was one of the founding members, and I knew her from my networking group. And she said that the group was about 2 years in, and they had proven the concept, and they were ready to take it up a notch. And they thought that they could benefit from some professional help with organizing their organization. And so I went and I met with them, and we did their fall event. I'll never forget it. And by the time we left that afternoon, by the time that first event wrapped up, they asked me to give them a proposal for their next three events. So, and that was a 15-year relationship, and we did 4 events a year, quarterly level, and I did all the marketing and advertising and all the sponsors and a whole lot of work with that organization. It was a really great experience. And then I decided that, a lot of folks were asking where else I did events like that. And, the answer at the time was, well, this is just here in the Northeast. And I thought I wanted to branch out because, when you have a business and, you want to try and streamline your operations, right? Like most businesses like to do. So it was really challenging to do a fashion show on a Saturday night and a golf tournament on a Monday and a contact center event on a Tuesday. So I decided to expand my offerings and to really go deep in the contact center space.
What drew you to it? I mean, I love it. There's a lot of us that have been in this space for a long time, but what really drew your attention to this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it touched on a lot of things for me. There was opportunities to learn. Um, I love to always have really great content and to identify topics and um, content that's going to be on someone's you have to always be thinking when you're a producer what is going to be top of mind for an executive 6 months from now because you do have extended lead times. So I like to think and I like to study different you know different types of uh, topics that will be resonating from a distance. So you have to go super high level, 30,000 feet up, and say, what's going to be a challenge that people are going to need to solve in the future? And who has a story to tell around that? And then building those conversations. So, in contact centers, there's so much opportunity and so many different angles to examine, and not to mention the fact that they cross so many different industries. So I thought that was really exciting to see. Like everyone with an 800 number essentially is a perfect target to attend this type of event. So
Right.
I like that. I like to identify niches and I like to build things. And I've always liked to build things. So I thought that was really interesting. And then there's so much technology in the space, which makes it really a perfect marriage for sponsorships. And
Yeah.
when I got started, I mean, I was selling sponsorships. I was doing, all the pieces that go into all of these different types of functions. The contact center industry was the only one where the vendors were calling me for sponsorships. So that got my attention very early on.
Right. Yeah, that was the primary way we met clients. Back that long ago. I mean, there wasn't all of the digital content or accessibility. So you made it 15 years working that amongst other shows and events. So, but you continued to double click really in this space, the contact centers. So walk the audience through what was the rest of the journey. I mean, that was it's an interesting pivot. Let's dive in that.
So the pivot didn't happen yet. I'll get to the pivot part, but this is more of an expansion. So I decided to double down on really where the industry and the opportunities were leading me because I had built my network far beyond just the 5 states that built up New England. And there I decided to take a look at and sort of study the competitive landscape to see where are there exceptionally high levels, high concentrations of contact centers within the US. So I built a 5 city tour from scratch by myself. And that tour went to Phoenix, Chicago, Miami, DC, and of course, I had to have a tour stop in my hometown of Boston. And that was doing exceptionally well. And then COVID happened. So um, I had sponsors signing up for all, 5 cities at a clip. And I worked really strategically with my sponsors as partners. And I think that's different. That I know that level of service is not something that you get with just um, any event organizer. So, to be able to say, okay, well, we're going to go to all 5 cities together. And when we get to this stop, who's on your list? Who's on your target list? I'd roll up my sleeves and work with my sponsors in a way. Well, first of all, I did it two ways. I created experiences for them where all of the vendors in the room was super boutique, super high end, high touch, I made sure that the sponsors that were in the room were all complimentary. So, you weren't going to have like four BPOs side by side, and
Right.
that's just too competitive. We created an experience where all of the technology that was being offered, it was all complementary to one another. And then from that, we also, I was able to really coordinate all these target hit lists. And I'd say, okay, great. When we get to Phoenix, we're not just going to rely on whoever registers and buys a ticket to show up. We're going to put people in that room that we want to engage with, that we want to have the FaceTime with. People, this was around the time where people stopped, picking up their phones. It was harder and harder. It's been harder and harder and harder to reach your target and to have the FaceTime with your prospects. So we're not just going to rely on email blasts. And I'd roll up my sleeves. I was cold calling people. I was leveraging every connection. I was getting people on the phone. And they were actually turning up, and that was really exciting. And I would be able to go back to my sponsors, and I'd always make sure that they had a generous amount of tickets with their sponsorship packages, and say, okay, well, you wanted to meet so and so from this credit union, and here they are. There's four deep that are registered to attend, and then you'd see the results. I had one client. They sold a credit union for like 1,000 seats with their technology after having the chance to have some FaceTime and get to know them and build a rapport and establish a relationship in person. And that's really the work that lights me up. I mean, I love to bring people together for, meaningful engagements like that. So, having that opportunity to create from the ground up something the way I always wanted it to be. And these were really, executive retreats. They felt like an experience, like out of the office. So I had the freedom and flexibility to build it exactly how I wanted it. So I took all the best pieces and built an event that was really very special. So it almost felt like a wedding, when you got there. So we had like past hors d'oeuvres and a DJ, and it was high energy and it was really fun. And people enjoyed it. And, you know, the numbers will tell that I was doubling, tripling the size in a very, within a year and a half. And it was really
Oh,
very successful until COVID hit and killed the entire industry, which we all know what happened there. So
yeah.
that was really difficult. We were a week out from our first stop in Phoenix. Phoenix had been one of the hottest markets that I was able to tap into something really special out there. And yeah, it was difficult. It was a really difficult time.
Yeah, I could imagine. I remember the challenges. I've worked remotely for 20 years. This is 20 plus. This is nothing new for me, but the way it changed everybody's life, let alone, I mean, being an event planner, I mean, there's no events. I mean, we couldn't, even if you wanted to, you couldn't bring people together, even in your own home in some places. Um, so I mean, would you do? I'm curious. I mean, obviously, it was hugely emotional. There's all the outside impacts. The psychology of it all will be studied for years. But how about you for yourself? I mean, would you do?
uh, it was an exceptionally difficult time to say the least. I had sold out. I would sell packages, so I had all five cities already committed to for the entire year. I had well into six figures on the table, and nobody really talks about this, but you know, it wasn't just that the product was completely obsolete, and nobody really, people talk about how they pivoted and restaurants and the takeout and this and that, but what did you do when you have all the money for a product that no longer exists? This was terrifying. So at the time, I remember thinking, my husband was saying, do we need to take out a loan and repay like all of these return all the money? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't really feel right to me, because I did all the work. I mean, I put 9 months of my work into that, and that's how I made my income. So it didn't really feel right. So I said, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. So of course, initially, March went to May, May went to September, but then the writing was on the wall. And it's really funny to me that I had the same conversation. I sought out mentors and people that I really admired, and I thought were very smart. And I went to them individually, one on one. Some we were taking like long walks. I live by the water here, South Shore of Boston. Some we'd go take a socially distant walk and just talk, and it was a very painful time. But they all said the same exact thing, and they didn't know each other, so it felt like they were reading from a script. They all said the same thing. They said, "We don't know what you're going to do, but we know you, and we know you're going to figure it out," which helped it helped me feel good. It helped me feel good that people that I really respected had that faith and confidence in me that I was going to figure it out. But at the time, I was really lost and I just didn't know what. So after the dust settled a little bit, I said, I've got to figure this out. And what I did, I wound up, there was a lot of everyone, the whole industry was running towards solutions at the same time. So it was even hard to get some of those virtual platforms to even pay attention to you because my budget, I want to shock you, Fred, my budget's not the same as like Coca-Cola or, a primary market brand that has endless budget and just has to get these things done. So I was able to find a virtual event platform that I could afford, that was easy enough to use, that I could build, and I would stay up. And I built that platform. I'd stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because it was the only time really the house was quiet. I had two kids I was homeschooling. 84 meals a week were coming out of the kitchen, just trying to keep everybody sort of happy. And I just needed time to think. So I sat up, I built this website and this platform, and I was able to pick up all the content, retool it because everything at that point was obsolete, which I was planning to talk about. And I built a month long experience that was the entire month of August, which again, completely upside down. It's unheard of. You don't really plan big events in August. So
Right.
I built a whole month long experience. And then I took each individual sponsor and I carved out a runway for them because everyone was starving for pipeline at the time. And I created a virtual event series, and they each had an exclusive week. And that's how we were able to make virtual connections. And I've always been a facilitator of bringing people together. And I was able to do that. I was able to, go through Zoom and just kind of pull you through and have an experience with me. And was still able to make introductions and do the work that I was hired to do. And satisfied all my sponsors. And I kept every penny on the table, every single penny. And I'm incredibly and will always be proud of that fact.
That is awesome. And that just attests to the partnership. If you didn't build a partnership and a relationship with those suppliers, they would have never given you the opportunity. I mean, we were all very, I think, considerate at that time, right? Everybody understood. No one knew really what was going to happen. And I think we all had a little more patience than usual. But, the fact that you were able to build that, get it out, solve it, and keep all the money on the table. I mean, that just attests to the relationships. Because if you didn't have that, they wouldn't have trusted you to be able to do that.
Relationships matter. Relationships are everything. In fact, really funny. There was one. There's always one. There was one sponsor that gave me a hard time, but I'll tell you the truth. They were giving me a hard time before COVID happened. So it is what it is. But funny thing was, three members of their team wound up working at this organization that I had worked with individually over my, past 15 years or so. And they were all three people I had these great relationships with on the same team. And they all went to bat for me. And they said, listen, we know Valerie a long time. We know the caliber of her work. We know she's going to get it done. And we trust her implicitly. And then this person's boss was on the phone and they said, yeah, sure, we could force her to pay the money back, but what are you going to do with it anyway? There's no events to go to. At least she's giving you an opportunity to start to build some pipeline and to drive some conversations and to start to, build some momentum. So that was a win. That was no short order though, keeping all that together. But that led to me to some really interesting things. And I still do things virtually, and I really like working and doing virtual events. I still do them to this day. I During that time frame, I started to notice a lot of things that were happening, particularly to executive level women that I had known through the industry for many, many years. A lot of changes were happening. A lot of them were leaving, very senior leaders were leaving their posts. And there were just challenges that were happening that I thought deserved some attention. So I created Women in Contact Center Leadership as a virtual community, and that still continues. And I have met some amazing leaders in the space. And when we have had the opportunity now to get together and meet in person, as the pendulum has swung back now for many, many years, um, those relationships, again, even remotely, are still so valuable. And when we get the chance to get together, it's like the roof comes off. The energy is so electric, and it's really, really, really awesome to see. And we talk about, you mentioned tomorrow's leaders. There's been so many women that I've had the chance to work with, to mentor, to be mentored by, that are part of that community. And we, unpack a plethora of issues. And that's where I see so much work is being done, and people are able to share advice, wisdom, um, referrals, a variety of different things. But really, especially right now with the explosion of technology and AI in the industry, there's a lot of concerns, there's a lot of anxiety. Of course, there's a lot of excitement, but there's a lot of different, just emotions happening all at once. To be able to, I was with speaking to an executive the other day, and she was sharing with me, really on a personal level, how much this group has built up her confidence. And she was able to get some really sound sage advice, and she went for she applied for a new role, and she got a wonderful promotion. And she was really cheerleaded on by many women in the group.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. So you made it through.
Mhm.
Or so you got to the other side of that. You pulled it off. You had a great event, digitally over a month period, unique. What was your next step?
Yeah, so this is an interesting wrinkle, actually. Things were starting to, uh, the pendulum was starting to swing back, it's starting to go the other way. And it was right around Thanksgiving of that year. I think that was 2021, maybe at the time. And that Saturday after Thanksgiving, I got COVID. And I was supposed to be in New York City for two live events that following week. I was leaving Monday. I had an event. I was working for a client Tuesday in New York City, and then I had a different event on the Wednesday. And that Saturday afternoon, I came down with COVID, and I don't remember a lot of that week, to be honest with you. I was down for the count. I would call it the magical hour, where you would get up, you could go from your day pajamas into your evening pajamas. Like, I was just flat out sick, and maybe maybe could take a quick shower and just get like just some clean clothes and go back to sleep. And at the end of that week, and this was a big blow because I'd finally gotten back up. I had these two opportunities, and at the end of that week, I remember my husband came into the bedroom and just sat at the edge of the bed because he hadn't had COVID. He actually is one of the few people I know that's never had COVID. I think he has that special, I don't know, there's special blood type. I think he's just never going to get it. Lucky him. But he's just sat there on the edge of the bed, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to make some changes. So I don't know what it's going to be. It's, holiday season now. I'm going to give myself some grace. And the beginning of the year in January, I'm going to retool my skill set. And that's what I did. And within 3 days, I had a consulting job at a contact center technology provider, and started to open up doors and to build out strategic partnerships for them. And, that's really what I love to do. So, if you think about like how events work, I mean, they're really just a backdrop for a lot of business development and bringing people together, creating community, um, telling a story, learning, educational pieces, networking, insights, sharing best practices, having some fun. A lot of people that had come to my events through the years, they would say, here's your brand, and they would tell me again, like they're reading from a script. People that didn't even know each other, they'd say, "Oh, I told my colleague that they should go to your event," and I told them, when Valerie does an event, I'll promise you three things: you're going to learn something, you're going to meet a lot of people, and you're going to have a good time. And I thought, well, that's not a bad brand to build. So if I can accomplish that, and people are talking about that, and I love to create a buzz, that's the buzz that people are leaving with. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you pivoted. Now you're consulting for software companies. So we're getting close to today. Um, what was the next steps? I mean, walk me through.
Yeah, so I work for some technology vendors, and I think that I really like I know how to build things. I know how to get things done. I know how to bring the right people together. I know how to jumpstart. I know how to deliver growth. I know how to accelerate the process. I know quite a bit about how marketing and getting a message to land. And I decided I'm happier to be on my own. I do a lot with women's leadership. I was doing some speaking. I actually was delivering a workshop, and our friends at Benchmark Portal were attendees at this event where I was giving a women's workshop, and I believe the the content was all around the power of community, and it was how to become a stronger leader. What are the good characteristics of being a strong leader? What are the benefits of having a good strong community? What can we learn from each other? And just bringing takeaways back to build stronger teams. And Bruce Belfiore from Benchmark Portal was there, and he was actually at the women's leadership breakfast, which is I always question the men that want to go to the women's leadership breakfast. I'm always like, okay, what's the real reason that you want to be in the room? And 9 times out of 10, they say they want to understand and support the women leaders on their team, in their organization. So Bruce actually, he led a standing ovation at the end of that breakfast. So we had, I like to get in there. I want to wreck the place. I have people, like, I break them up into groups. We're talking and we're sharing, and we're doing all kinds of crazy things. And the energy in that room that day was really electric. And it was the kickoff breakfast for the whole 2 days that we were going to be together. And people were just, instantly jump starting their networking. And that's really why we go to events, right? Like, it's great to
Yeah.
learn. There's a lot of places to learn, but we're really there to meet like-minded people. And anyway, so that's where I met Bruce. And then he called me, earlier this year, and said he's working on his call center campus event, and they're very, very busy, and they could use some assistance, and would I like to work with them? So in a way, it felt really like a return to home, to be working on this project with him. And that's really what this whole year has been about for me. Where am I in my own journey, in my own career? What really are the pieces that I get the most enjoyment out of? What do I really like to do? You can see the be your best self behind me here. I really feel like I love to empower people to be the next best version of themselves. And what does that look like? And really take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, like your strengths, your weaknesses. What's the next version of you look like? And how do you get there?
Yeah. I love it because I always talk about 1% better every day. And I know there's a lot of people that use that phrase. But to truly believe in it and, let your people understand that, it's okay to make mistakes. It's actually necessary for learning, in my opinion. I mean, you can tell me your learnings, 99% of the best learnings that stick are the ones that come from a mistake, or a bad choice, right? Maybe it's not even a mistake. Maybe it's just you made the best decision you could out of the data that you had available. And then, as more data presents itself, you realize, well, should have saw that coming. And you make another decision. But it is about 1% better every day.
I think that there's something when you work for yourself, you're 100% commission, you work for yourself, right? So, the failures are yours, the successes are yours. With COVID, there's a very unique situation, though, because, a business that was not broken burnt down overnight with no warning. and that's difficult to navigate. And there's a lot. I think there's a lot more, emotional pieces to that, a lot more trauma than I ever really even would have imagined, because I'm a person like, you just got to keep going. You just get up, you brush yourself off, you got to keep going. You got to run that race. And I think that the concept of failing, um, it's hard to swallow when you're talking about something that really you just wasn't a matter of predictability. Nobody saw that coming. But I think that in general, you always learn much more from your failures than you do from any success. And it's good to fail. It's good to have to reevaluate what's working and what's not. You don't just get in, set it on autopilot and just keep going for, 30, 40 years and have a career. Things change. I mean, look what's happening right now. Like, look at how many businesses have had to recreate themselves. Look at what's happening right now with the job market. People are, career people are being replaced by AI. So if we're not thinking about what's next for us and what's possible, I mean, we're not going to work forever. Our time here on earth is not endless. Like, we have to be happy with what we do. Your work is not meant to drain you. Your work is meant to energize you. So if your work isn't, I mean, that's the bright spot of COVID. It opened up infinite possibilities. You could do anything you want and make money, right? So what is it you really want? And then you have to go after it, make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually is a great segue into the conversational piece, the questions, So let's dive in. I want to get your take on what right now is keeping you up at night. As far as the contact center space, the changes, the shifts, what's keeping you up?
Well, I mean, the rapid expansion and explosion of AI is something that's definitely keeping people up at night. People are worried about losing their agents. They're worried about just the transformation. They're worried about the legalities of what the AI is going to bring. I mean, I think it's unpredictable what's going to happen in the space, and just how quickly, like for example, I've been working on call center campus now for a few months, like developing the program and the content. It's been a challenge. When I started working on this in April, things have unfolded so quickly. Imagine trying to predict what's going to be on people's minds in the end of October. From April, it's going so fast. So making sure that the content and things are timely and relevant, that's an interesting challenge to see. I think seeing the future of work is also uh, a thing that nobody really has a good answer for right now. It's just changing so fast.
Yeah, and that keeps you up at night. You said the words it keeps a lot of people, but does that are those things you spend a lot of? I mean, I imagine content creation, trying to create a valuable learning, that's got to be in there. But is that really what keeps you up at night?
Well, let's see. Actually, I'll tell you the truth. I'm sleeping better than I have in years. So that's actually fact. I think that concerns about what's next are keeping a lot of people up at night.
Yeah.
I think concerns about, just beyond just the contact center, like what's next for the economy, what's next for, the future of like roles of how we work, where we work. I mean, how businesses are reducing major amounts of their workforce to AI. That's challenging. I mean, there's certain functions that, I mean, AI is great, but it's not the be all end all to everything. I think the fact that we all have a solution for every problem, that's not helpful. That's very confusing. Trying to cut through the clutter of what's real and what's not, and also making sure, like, it can make you more productive, but is it correct?
It's a good question. I think double clicking on something you said about the future of work, right, and where this is heading. I mean, we've all heard the AI doomers, talking about it's gonna turn into Terminator and kill us all, and that's one extreme, right? And then there's the other extreme where all the optimists, and I fall into generally an optimist category, for technology, but I'm also very ingrained in reality of, the painfulness of any transition. But the work of the future, um, do you believe that we're really at that stage where a lot of those jobs are going away, and or is that just a lot of vendors being hyperbolic? Are you actually seeing that happening out in the space? From suppliers, from clients, are you hearing about these layoffs? And I know I have my own, obviously, I've got a pretty large network in this industry. But I'd love to hear your insights. Are you hearing about these actual events happening?
Well, I mean, go to LinkedIn any day of the week, right? Don't you see all the layoffs and all the tech talent? It's been a bit of a bloodbath this year, right? I mean, I see budgets shrinking. I see really talented people that have been let go. I see a lot of shifts in the space, and you have to wonder, what's that about? Like, I see a lot of decisions being made exceptionally slow. I think that lead times have gone uh, more than double of what they would typically be. I think it's harder to get I think it's harder to navigate these tech stacks. And I think that the role of your trusted advisor has become even more important than ever because people have to truly understand 360 how these tech stacks work. But also, there's a lot of legal issues now that with AI could be offering. We've seen the lawsuits that are starting to happen, right? So that's something to think about. And I've noticed a lot of brands that are being sued, but I also know where's the BPO provider in that lawsuit, right? There's one I'm thinking of. I don't want to name names, but I don't believe that their BPO is named in that. But of course, they're going to be they're somehow accountable. Um,
Depending on the contracts, right? I
yeah.
mean, depending on how, if it's a big enough brand, you can force a lot of things into those contract terms. It's going to get interesting. I mean, but yeah, I mean, just to click into the enforcement or the regulations of this stuff, the latest, what was it? The bill, I don't remember the bill's name, the one that was going to require you to, put yourself on a list if you're outsourcing outside of the country, and two, pay a fine if you don't follow the regulations. And there was some underpinning hidden stuff about AI, even though that's a jobs related bill. There was AI within that bill. Talking about having to announce that it is AI, giving somebody a direct immediate opportunity to talk to an agent if someone chooses, and then of course again registering if you're using bots in replace of humans. um,
Well, I think that's interesting though on the brand side though. Don't you think that people want to know if they're engaging with AI? Don't you
yeah,
think that
I've
your
always
consumers have a right to know if they're talking to about because we all know how good quality that the responses have become and that the conversational AI is. We all know that. Like, but don't you think that consumers have a right to know?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
I've always been a proponent of we should tell everybody when they're talking to a bot. No question. Now, um, that doesn't mean that, if my opinion means that how people are developing the software. I mean, how many companies have you talked to recently that are trying to pitch their empathy in their bots? You don't build empathy in order to, do anything other than try to convince somebody that you are talking to a human. And that's I mean, no, yeah, absolutely. You should tell everybody right away. I think that's reasonable, and I think that'll get passed. I think you'll have to announce that. Um, but to your point, there's so much going on. Companies are forgetting that you still got to follow all the other TCPA compliance stuff. That there's a big class action right now, a couple of them, that are because people forgot to announce that they have to record this, or this call will be recorded for compliance and training purposes. And they forgot that. they didn't build that prompt into the front end and force it to happen in every single call. And now they got a class action suit because what do you know that the AI tools are using those recordings in order to train and tune the systems. So here we are, you know, again, people forgot in their excitement to try to deploy this technology that the compliance still falls in whether you're using AI or a live agent. It doesn't really matter. Still got to follow the rules.
Right. Well, two things that you just hit on that I want to just uh, touch on. There's a wonderful story that was shared that came out of my women's community. And um, one of the brands was able to build empathy into their AI and build empathy in there in such a solid, strong, intentional way. They were able to prevent two suicides, internal suicides. Now, this chatbot was only being used internally for employees, it wasn't customer facing. But the fact that they were able to identify, and this is from a remarkably brilliant woman who is a member of my group who was very instrumental in the build of this bot. That's remarkable. That's absolutely remarkable and noteworthy. So, and that's just two that we know of. So, it
Yeah.
can be created, and having that level of design where that empathy is really baked in is something that's extremely noteworthy. And we're actually going to get a chance to hear more on that story at Call Center Campus this year. So,
Very cool. I look
yeah.
forward to hearing that. I'm curious if it was the empathy in the bot or the sentiment analysis that identified it, or I'm curious. You know, that makes me want to double click because I mean, it's a valid point. Yeah, there is how to. I mean, there's an epidemic of loneliness. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and to have a bot that could actually be there for individuals. But I know this technology too well, and I keep going back to no LLM is infallible. You connect a conversational bot to it with the best prompting in the world. You may be able to catch hallucinations. You may be able to identify some opportunity to do a prompt injection and stop it from misbehaving, but you can't 100% guarantee it unless you script out the flow and build the guardrails in such a way that it really almost becomes a really good NLU NLP bot, right? And sorry to go a little too techy, but my mind goes there. Yeah. So for every instance where building that humanity, so to say, or the empathy into a bot, for every positive, there's also the opposite side of that with just like any advanced technology, right? Just like nuclear weapons, I mean, there's positive, splitting the atom. I guess I should have said splitting the atom created a really good energy source, but at the same time, it also created, the worst possible weapon, ever. Um, I'm interested. I look forward to hearing about that. I'll have to make sure 100% to make that session. Um, that'll be that'll be interesting to dive down into. And maybe the geek in me, I'll just have to sit back in the corner quietly and not ask too many questions because I can't help it. So
Well, you're going to be there to ask questions, and that's where a good
I will be.
conversation is born. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can tell you another
absolutely.
interesting story about splitting the atom, but maybe that'll be for another time. It's actually one of my relatives on my grandmother's side was involved and was actually named. Well, he's a famous scientist, and it was included in Oppenheimer, but that's a different story for a different day. So that is true. But one other thing you said though, with and I have a personal thing, a personal mission that I want people to think of, and this won't cost any money, and I'd like to see this adopted. And you talked a little bit about when you're put on hold, and frontline agents get so much abuse,
Oh yeah,
and it really spills into their mental health, and it's really a problem. I mean, you have to think about this. You wouldn't walk into any other office or any other business and just start screaming at the first person you see. Like, it's really a problem, and people's behavior is just off the rails, and I don't know how some of these agents do it. And you can't take that kind of abuse all day long, and it's not rolling around in your head. It's just it's And these folks are not paid a lot at that level. And they are, having to maneuver all this different technology, multiple screens, and then deal with like negative call after negative call. What I would love to see, and I'd love to have companies think about this, it won't cost you anything. Just start adding a sentence to your hold message that says, this call is being recorded for quality and monitoring purposes. Just add one sentence that says, and also for record of your behavior with our reps. People forget that they are also being recorded for
Yeah.
their behavior and their engagement. And I'd like to see more companies start to take action on really bad behavior because it's not okay what's going on.
Yeah.
It won't cost you anything to do. And it's a reminder that your behavior matters, your decorum matters, your engagement with our employees matter. Our employees matter. And that would be a whole different way to just really just remind people. I think people have totally forgotten.
Oh, they've absolutely forgotten, and they feel like it's perfectly okay, and it's their right. It's that whole, customer is always right mentality that's been driven into so many people's minds. And, as a business owner, if you're a serious business owner, you've fired a client before.
Yes, I
You've
have.
known have
I have. No,
uh,
no shame in that game.
no, not at all. The reality is the average consumer doesn't even think about that other person. Sometimes I wonder if they even consider it's an actual human. And I mean, I was an agent. I mean, I remember it's one of the toughest jobs. I mean, I grew up. My parents didn't own the farm, but I was loaned out to a lot of farmers, and I remember working 18-hour days out on a hay rack, and I also remember spending 8 hours on a phone. You know what I feel like it was easier, especially on my mental health, working on the hay rack, right? so it's a tough job. I think compliance people might have a little problem with adding that single line to it, but I mean, I'd love to see companies take that seriously, and if somebody is discovered doing that I mean, fire a client, if it's bad enough, right? At least do something about it. You know, it's yeah. I mean, I'd love to see that change. I
I
would
mean,
love.
it's very easy to adopt. It won't cost you anything. It's just going to humanize the experience a little bit, and you know, it's something so simple. Why don't we do that? Why don't we take better care of our people?
It's a little bit. Our people are our greatest resource.
Hmm.
We are analyzing you as a customer. I don't know. You'd have to get a compliance person involved,
Yeah.
but there's got to be a way to say that.
Excuse me.
I like the
It's so
idea. I
easy. It's
mean,
so smooth. But the other thing you just said, um, in terms of, oh, well, I just want to mention this too. I was an agent too for a little while. As an aside, when I first started working right out of college, just to earn a little extra money, and I worked for one of the local magazines in Boston, one of the newspapers, and it was their this way before we had Match.com or any of the sites. People would write their personal ads, and you would call and you'd help them write their dating profile ads, and it was so fun. I did it for about 6 months. Let's learn a little extra money. It was fun.
heck, you got to do what you got to do. So we spent a lot of time on this one. So I'm going to ask you to open up your crystal ball real quick, and get that out. And what do you see over the next 5 years, specifically in contact centers customer experience?
Well, I see a lot of change. I see a lot of automation. I see a lot of good use of tools. And I think people they want to do anything but talk to a person until they have a bad experience with the technology, then they can't get to a person fast enough. What I'm hoping to see is a sophistication of the roles of the agent, and that they finally can have recognition of the fact of how difficult their job is. This is not the same. I mean, these agents are paid with the same level as you would be working in fast food or entry level, and this is a much different nature of the sophistication that's required. So I'd like to see a maturity in organizations by finally understanding that this is the voice of the front line. Like, this is the voice of our customer, our voice of our company. And I think it's probably going to be about that time, because in the next 5 years, anything that doesn't require a human to touch, anything that can't, right now, as we stand, anything that can be automated should. So I'd like to see a little more of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the deflection and handle rates of these systems, and the actual quality of the voice, and I mean, they've almost got it to human like, pauses, and yeah, I mean, it's so good. The right technology implemented the right way with the right data and training. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the future agent is a much more skilled, high empathy, really, kind of almost, customer management versus customer service, where they really understand the customer. They have all the details, and their job is to ensure that with empathy, they help the customer solve whatever problem it is, and it's done quickly. I like that. I like that a lot. I hope you're right. Um, I think we'll have a period of time like we're in right now where there's still a lot of confusion and a lot of challenges, but I think we'll get there for sure. And definitely within 5 years, no question about it. So if you were to give advice to your younger self, or in another term, for the audience that's just getting into contact centers, customer experience space, um, you know, what would you tell them? What would be your advice to, a newbie just getting in, just starting to learn?
Well, I think that the contact center industry is really unique in the sense that people may leave their organization, they may leave their center, but they don't tend to leave the industry, which is really sort of unique. I can only think of really one other industry that I see that people really don't leave the industry, and that's, like, think about hotel concierges. They may leave their hotel, but they just go to the hotel across the street, which is a lot of what you see in the contact center. I think that there's opportunity to learn from the ground up, and I think that you should lean in, find a company that you really enjoy, that you like all of the culture that's around it, that you agree on principles, what they stand and they believe in, and then find a way and just work your way up. Because I think that understanding every role within an organization is really important, and you want to understand and learn from the ground up. What I would tell my younger self, um, to be flexible, and to realize when, you talked about firing clients, and you know understanding when to walk away and when something's time has passed, and to let go, and to not allow myself to be compromised, and to know what you stand in and what you believe in, and if you know what's right, and you know what the right thing to do is, or the right response, or not to be not to doubt yourself. If you doubt, when you doubt your beliefs, you give. When you doubt yourself, you give. What is that famous saying? If you just don't want to listen to the doubts, you give power to the doubts, and should always believe in yourself.
Well, and you gave one earlier about your network, right? Be involved with three groups. And every time in your journey, it seemed like when you reached a crossroad, there was always somebody there to bounce ideas off of, have conversations. So I mean, I'd have to call it out. It sounds like network is also something that you definitely recommend for anybody in the space.
Your network is your net worth. Um, if you doubt your power, you give power to your doubts. That's what I wanted to say a minute
There
ago.
you go.
Your network is your net worth. Your network is everything. Your lifeblood of your business is always your sales, but where do they come from? You have to invest and have time with people, but you also have to enjoy the people, and you are the product of the people that you surround yourself with. So, um, making sure that you keep your network, keep your communication fresh. What you put out there on LinkedIn is important. Like, what is your personal brand? Everyone has one, whether you know it or not. Is it
Yeah.
reflective of who you really want it to be? Um, yeah, yeah, for sure. So, I'm not sure if I answered that question right, but
Yeah. There's no right
I,
or wrong.
your network is everything. I mean, you have to have people that, and staying top of mind with those people is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just when you're searching for a job. I mean, it's like we talked about, AI is changing our world, but it's also changing the way that HR applications go. The average job, all the hiring managers I talk to, if it's any junior to senior level leadership role, they're getting 1,000+ resumes per post. Do you really think that sending your resume via AI tools or manually going in and applying to jobs, if that's going to get you, do you think that's the future? How you're going to land a role when you need it?
No.
Not a chance.
No, everything is who you know. And if you don't believe that, you don't know anybody. So you have to cultivate the right relationships and have reason to be, ask for the right introductions. And you have to help other people through the threshold. So open a door for others, keep the door open for others, and respect those who open the door for you. I'm really sick of people with short memories. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Always help others. Give. And that's,
Givers
you
gain.
know, yeah. Yep, exactly. So, if you could pick out of your audience or out of your network, what we do here. Who do you think would be a great guest to inspire the next generation of leaders?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. Who do I think would be the next? Um, wow. I mean, up and coming leaders. I could give you a few names of some up and coming leaders that I think should would appreciate the spotlight. I think there's a lot of great people building things now that probably might be even think themselves too humble to put themselves in a spotlight. But I think that people are really are on the front line. I'm seeing people like put together um, really great conversations and really full community based rooms of women that are interested in the future of AI. I think that's a great path to go down. Some of the brands that are really forward thinking, maybe some of the social media platforms. I mean, where are they going to go like in the future?
Okay, I like it. Anybody in particular in your immediate network that would has a great story, a great journey like yours?
Well, the gal that created that built that empathetic bot that saved that prevented those two suicides. I think I'd like to. I'll give you her details once we wrap.
Yeah, introduce me. Love to talk to her, see if she's interested. So, what I found, everybody has a story to tell, and
Mhm.
usually once given the opportunity, they love telling it. It's funny how we're humans. I mean, humans, we that's our language, right? Stories. I mean, that's why stories work in marketing and building events. You give them a story. Um, I appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you at Call Center Campus in October down in Austin. For those people that don't know, reach out to Valerie. If you don't know how, reach out to me. I'll connect you to Valerie. But definitely take a look at that. We'll both be there. Bells on, and that'll be a great event. I'm really excited since you got involved with that. Super excited to see this continue to grow. I think you'll do amazing things. I already like the venue for the ideas you put out there for this year. I'm super excited. So,
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome. I think we're going to sell out. So, yeah, make sure if you're planning to join us in Austin that you get registered as soon as possible. And it's very easy to find me. It's just my name, ValerieMcSorley.com. That's the one thing I know will not change in the rest of this life. Even if I get divorced, Fred, I'm not changing my name. I got sons; their name's not changing.
there you go. You guys heard it.
ValerieMcSorley.com.
All right. Appreciate you, Valerie. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.